All right. Well, hello again, everybody. This is Buck Benny speaking. We got a full house today. We have our new friend Vincent, who is joining us. He is really our Orson Welles specialist, but he's willing to sit through and talk about a little bit of Jack Benny. And he watched the episode we're going to be talking about today. It's a historic episode, one of the most famous episodes of Jack Benny's whole television run, I would say, maybe the most famous. Anyway, we'll get into that in just a minute, but I also have Catherine Fuller-Seeley here, who is our Jack Benny specialist for sure, knows her Jack Benny stuff backwards and forwards, also a historian in general. We have John Henderson. I really don't know what his specialty is other than coming and being part of this.
I'm not an expert, just a fan.
You would think after my cease and desist order, he would stop coming, but no, he's still here. So anyway, but John runs my competing podcast, which is This Day in Jack Benny. Just a wonderful, wonderful podcast. If you've listened to all mine and you want to move on to something else. We have our friend Terry Phillips down there with Imaginary Theater. And for me, he's at the very bottom of the screen. I don't know where he is. I never know how it's going to display for anybody else. But hey, it is what it is. And he's not last or least. He's there for us. But Imaginary Theater, do you have a new one coming out soon or anything? Or
we're working on a science fiction episode.
Ooh, awesome. I just love the fact that you cover all these different genres as you're doing it. It's wonderful. So yeah, if you really want to enjoy something, go to Imaginary Theater. Here's some modern takes on old time radio, kind of pieces of that. His Western was amazing. He's just got it's like Twilight Zone is the closest thing I can think of where they cover a lot of different spaces and do a lot of different things, and just a delightful show, and not a huge time commitment on your part, about 20 minutes per episode or something like that, give or take. So very enjoyable. All right, well, let's get started. Today's episode is the famous episode that features Marilyn Monroe. It is probably, unless somebody can correct me on this, one of the biggest gets that was out there in early television. The movie actors were kind of against it because they thought it was going to take away from their movie revenue and maybe destroy the movie industry if TV caught on. They loved radio because it applied so well and would never steal their audience or anything. But TV, they were a little leery about. So you didn't get a lot of big names coming across into television. And Marilyn Monroe was one of the biggest. And this was Jack's opening show for the season of the 53-54 season, it would have been. And just Marilyn does a wonderful job, and you can truly see her star power in this performance. I mean, she's delightful and she's funny and she plays up to Jack so well, and Jack does such a great job with her. I just love this episode. I think it's fabulous. So we'll go from there and head off to let's start with Vincent and just get, what did you think of this episode? Have you watched much Jack Benny? And what did you kind of think of it? Did it seem really dated? Did it seem like it holds up? I don't know.
It's a great question. No, I had not seen a lot of Jack Benny at all. In fact, I will say I didn't particularly find the episode too funny. I thought Marilyn Monroe really stole the show, though. I thought she was really engrossing. For me, though, the interest was actually in sort of the tourism culture. I've been to Hawaii. I did my honeymoon in Hawaii, and so I thought, wow, this seems very similar to me. And so I did a little bit of digging, and essentially what we see here in 53 is the beginning of the sort of faux tourism, mass tourism in Hawaii, which is a sort of a post-war phenomenon. And so even though tourism in Hawaii starts early 1900s, you see a little bit of the sort of what we think of as aloha culture happening in like the mid 30s. I think there's a radio show, what is it, Webley Edwards weekly sort of radio show on Hawaii from Waikiki Beach. But here we start seeing the massive tourism, a lot of the lays, the sort of commercialization of sex and romance. And I think Jack Benny, one of the things he did really well is, sort of poke fun at the idea of you'll find romance in Hawaii. And not only are you going to find romance, it's going to be with, you know, Marilyn Monroe. And so I thought that all tied really well together. Yeah, that was what I thought was the most successful part of it.
Nice job, Vincent. Yeah, yeah. I hadn't really thought, I'd thought of that previously, but watching it this time, I really didn't focus on that piece, but you are exactly right. Some of it completely plays like a travelogue sort of thing, and certainly for parts of it, certainly with the voiceovers and things that they do and showing the stock footage and things that they use. John, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I recognized the travelogue guy's voice, and I wonder if somebody like Terry can confirm this or not, but it sounded like the Jay Ward announcer, the guy who does like George of the Jungle and Rocky and Bullwinkle. And so it was interesting to see him in a totally different context, sort of playing it straight. I love the episode. This must be one of the most famous episodes because Marilyn Monroe is so famous. And I thought it was delightful. I thought all of the things worked, and the acting. Marilyn Monroe, you know, played her particular part perfectly, and yeah, I one of the things that I found interesting was the commercials. The opening commercial, how it appeals. I don't know. Are they trying to appeal towards college kids? Maybe Kathy can tell us more about that, because you got this like, you know, older man who's like, oh, college kids love smoking too. And I didn't know if they were trying to like say, hey, if college kids love smoking Luckies, you will too, or if they were actually trying to appeal to college kids. But well, I love
John, let me hop in there for just a second. The thing you probably maybe aren't connecting together, but it's there, John, is at the same time on the radio show, this is when Dawn comes out and says, oh, at colleges across the country, the #1 smoking brand is Lucky Strike and all that. And so they're playing it up. It was interesting for me seeing this in that I knew that they were playing it up on radio. I didn't realize it was crossing over to television. So they were really trying to get that college audience, and both in the radio and television program. So I thought that was really interesting, like you're saying. Great.
I don't think it's just about college audiences, though. I think colleges at this time are used as sort of a barometer of taste more broadly. I don't know it from smoking, but I do know it from like swing bands, big bands. They had this big college poll that they would do every year, and that was sort of like, ooh, the college kids are into, you know, Benny Goodman, so everybody should be too. And so I think that's part of it. It's not just about attracting a college audience, which is growing. People going to college is growing, but it's still not this sort of mass phenomenon that we have now.
Perfect. I think you're exactly right, Vincent. Nice job.
Kathy, do you want to hop in on that before I keep going?
Oh, sure. And here's a tiny note. The announcer for that commercial is Ed Thorgerson. He was the very first announcer on May the 5th or May the 2nd, 1932, on Jack's very first radio show. And in those early days, Jack made a joke about Ed, saying that he looked like he had swallowed all of Mickey Mouse but the tail. And so you just so here Ed has grown that little tiny mustache out just a little bit, but it is not much more. So good old Ed. You all are absolutely right about the cachet of college students, but what I understand from the history of tobacco is that the market for Lucky Strikes is shrinking. It's considered an old working class guy's cigarette, unfiltered. The college hipsters are smoking Marlboros and Pall Malls. So, you know, in a way, this is a last ditch effort to give Lucky Strike some class, as you say, Vincent, before, you know, they just run. But it was still a large enough market, the old folks smoking Luckies, that's why Lucky Strike decided to stay with Jack all the way through the decade. It was because their advertising formula was just yell, 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 sell, 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 keep the name. You know, they said if the minute we stop advertising this, and this happened to Salem's, I think, the minute you stop advertising it, sales will plummet. So that's why they were willing to stick with Jack through this whole time, even though, as I said, it's really an interesting reach to try for the college kids.
Well, Salem really didn't need anyone else besides my father as Smokey.
There you go. Yeah.
His Salem usage back then, he was a 3-pack a day man, and man, he's chain smoked. I remember it clearly. And then, unfortunately for him, came the commercial Like Father, Like Son, and that kid looked identical to me. It was me on television, essentially, and my dad couldn't take it. He was just like, I'm stopping, and he stopped.
Oh,
Cold
really?
turkey. It would have been 1967, I believe, is when he stopped. And I remember him having licorice after licorice, trying to stop, but he did it. And he's 94 years old today, doing well.
Oh, wow.
He's 3 weeks after having his second shot for COVID. I mean, we think he's going to make it, and he's doing wonderfully, and I just love it. And I guarantee you he would not be here smoking that kind of amount of cigarettes, whether they were Salem's or not, if he hadn't stopped. So I am delightful they came up with that commercial, and it saved my dad's life. So that's awesome.
Wow.
But
I really,
back to John, let him finish off some more. Go ahead, John.
I really enjoyed the mid commercial, the commercial in the middle of the episode with the hula dancing, just because I've got a crazy hectic life, and that was just chill and relaxing. I thought it was I mean, I don't know, maybe you guys know some of these references better. Arthur Godfrey, all I saw was that he was like maybe a late night TV host, so maybe you can.
He worked everywhere.
24 hours a day.
Yeah, so
he had like 2 top 10 shows in early television for years, and huge. His talent scouts were the big thing.
But he started as morning drive time radio in Washington, D.C. And so he could do everything, and he did everything. He was had a huge ego, but a big following.
He was sort of like, what's the guy on American Idol that's everywhere? Anyway, he was similar to him, and he ran a show that was kind of like American Idol, but it was I guess it was closer to America's Got Talent. It was just a talent show from everywhere, but just dominated and had a great voice and the whole thing. So anyway, or at least had a voice that worked to attract audiences. But
what other names stuck out to you?
There was they mentioned a lot of celebrities going overseas or something like that. Yeah, here, I'm going to give a bunch of questions and somebody else will answer them. Okay. The Ed Sullivan Show. I love the Ed Sullivan Show. But I've only got like a best of, and I don't know whether it's the greatest TV show of all times, or if you've got highlights from, such a long period of time, you're going to get, great segments, but I love that. There's one, I was watching a I Love Lucy episode recently with my kids, and there's an episode where there's like a psychologist, and it was driving me nuts. I'm like, who is this actor? He looks so familiar. So I finally found it. I looked it up. It's Joseph Kearns, who I know as Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace.
Right.
So, yeah.
We also know him as the interviewer of the Jack Benny gang throughout whenever they do the shows about how Jack met Mary, how Jack met Rochester, how Jack met whoever.
Yeah.
He's always the guy that's on there that's supposed to be the reporter interviewing Jack and his folks about how they met.
I was just listening to one of those shows, and I never would have connected that because like the look of his face is so unique that just hearing his voice wouldn't do it for you. And then they mentioned the obviously Marilyn Monroe's movie, Gentlemen Before Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire, but also The Robe, which was sort of I watched it for the first time this Easter. It's not a Bible story, but it's like, imagine other people were around during a Bible story. And apparently there's like huge actors that I'd never seen before. So I need to start expanding my, I've only watched a bunch of old classic comedies and mysteries. I need to start expanding my genres. So yeah.
Well, over to Terry then. Terry, what do you have for your ideas about the show?
Well, first, let me assure you, John, that you did recognize the voice of the travelogue announcer. It was Paul Frees, who is, we say Mel Blanc was the man of 1,000 voices. Paul Frees really was the man of 1,000 voices and was everywhere on radio and had a very long career, did a ton of commercials. I met him in a recording studio 25, 30 years ago. And he was a force to be reckoned with, a larger than life actor and with a larger than life voice, who, by the way, did a very, very good Orson Welles.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Was he the voice on Stan Freberg's
Yes.
America,
Yes.
History of America?
Stan Freberg presents the United States of America.
Yeah, there you go. I love that.
And Joseph Kearns was not just Mr. Wilson on Dennis the Menace and not just a regular on Jack Benny's programs, but he was everywhere on radio too. He had, much like Paul Frees, he had a voice that wasn't that different, but it was unrecognizable enough that he could do lots of different character voices and did. I want to mention a name that got a big laugh at the beginning of the program. Jack Benny mentioned, and I, my hearing's not as good as it used to be, but it sounded like Wayne Sondler. You mentioned Ed Sullivan, and Jack makes a joke about this. I don't want to give it away, but I was surprised by how big a laugh it got. And so, for our viewers who haven't seen the episode yet, keep an eye open for that. And I want to point out a couple of things that I consider odd in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
One is, and they did it again in the remake, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
The chicken liver lay joke. That sounded to me like a radio joke because
Yeah.
we saw immediately that it wasn't made of flowers. We didn't know exactly what kind of meat it was, but it was clear that it was, something from the deli. And I thought it was interesting that the writers, who were Jack's radio writers and who wrote this episode, wrote that joke as if it were a radio joke. I thought that was kind of odd. And the other thing that clearly would not be on television today was the fat shaming jokes.
Yeah.
They were hilarious. I could not help but laugh at them, but I at the same time understood very clearly that in today's culture, nobody, I don't think anybody would dare put such jokes on TV anymore. But in 1953, I was 6 months old when this episode was on.
Wow.
Everybody was laughing at it and didn't think twice about it. And it's interesting how the world has changed.
Yeah.
Well, there's another joke that is so no, you wouldn't do it today that most people probably wouldn't even catch it, which is the fact that the Scotsman gets a lay for spending money, whereas I don't even think my kids know that that's like a thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Agreed. In these old shows, they have those jokes that just will not play today, and where no one would touch them.
Right. They're the sort of remnants of turn of the century humor.
Yes.
When sort of making fun of ethnic characteristics or visual characteristics was some people thought a way of pulling people into the melting pot, but otherwise emphasizing difference. So that you are not me. So.
But John, I think it's still okay to make ball jokes, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's no problem.
Well done. I just had a question about the Marilyn Monroe, and maybe you folks that know a little bit more about the history of the whole thing. I believe in 53, wasn't that about as she was as big as she would ever get in right around that time frame? I'd say 53 to 55-ish, and then from there she kind of starts to drift down a little bit. Also, she's probably maybe the biggest star, kind of like a Kim Kardashian of her time or something, where she would be just known by everyone. Maybe have the highest, what is that called? Their Q score or whatever, when the people that are most recognized, when you say that nobody knows them. I think she would be one of the highest Q scores around then.
You're absolutely right. And she was known just for, like Kim Kardashian, for just being. She was, as opposed to specific acting roles.
Right.
Because not very many of her movies impress me as movies, but she is very much the personality. So you're right. This was a huge publicity coup for Jack Benny to get this big Hollywood star who Fox would never have let go on any other TV show. So, but Jack Benny had been known since his radio days, since the 40s, when he could get top ranked Hollywood talent on the radio show. Jack was known for he and his show treated celebrities gently and well. He always made them look good. He got them the laughs. It was never putting them down or exploiting them or things like that. Now you can kind of see the difference, I think, say when Jack Benny appears on somebody else's like radio show and they don't know what to do with him and it's pretty horrible. It makes me appreciate how well Jack and his writers usually treated Hollywood celebrities, big name celebrities. And indeed, just a couple weeks after this, Humphrey Bogart made his first television appearance on the Jack Benny Show. So as I said, it was considered quite a coup and made the television medium, especially sort of out here moving to Los Angeles, seem to have sort of more legitimacy and respect. So while the show, Vincent, you had said was not necessarily very funny, in kind of the prestige factor, while otherwise we've got prestige about these 90-minute dramas, here we have a little bit of prestige of a little Hollywood glamour being sprinkled.
Oh, and I totally believe that CBS was probably just ecstatic with Jack's show, not for the ratings or anything necessarily, but for the fact that he could get these big name stars that they could not get on their network or any network any other way than through Jack's show. And over the years, especially throughout the mid to late 1950s, he was attracting huge names that would not be.
Sure. Irene Dunn, Gary Cooper, name.
Yeah.
And Kathy, is it not true that this was not only Marilyn Monroe's first appearance on television, it was her only appearance on television?
Oh, that's interesting.
I believe
it could be true. It could be true.
Yeah.
As far as
I think she was very nervous, so it's like she didn't really, although I understand she had a personality that she could turn on, because otherwise you could walk down the street and not necessarily even notice her, other than being a sort of pretty woman. But when she decided to turn on her personality, it was, but I'll do some research on that. That's a very interesting.
Don't rely on IMDb. IMDb says that she was on in 1952 on an episode that I watched, and she was not on that episode. You can't always trust the Internet Movie Database.
As far as the comedy of it, one of the funniest things about this episode is the reactions and the facial expressions and the acting, the delivery. Like, this show would not be as funny on radio, but when you look at you think of Jack Benny in the situation that he's in, and you already know his desires and what's going on in his head. So when you see his reactions, both to Marilyn Monroe and the other woman who she turns into or whatever, his reactions are the funniest part. And I know we're running out of time. We're going a bit long, but I want somebody also to mention the Kinsey report.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's go into the Kinsey report. Kathy.
Sure, Vince. You want to have a crack at it? It was certainly in popular culture as this kind of marvelously scandalous thing, this academic scientific report that said all kinds of things about people having multiple partners, women being able to have orgasms, they're existing homosexuals and things like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think it plays into this idea of the sort of the aloha culture that this episode makes fun of, the idea of romance and sex in Hawaii, that you pay enough, to go on this boat and all these great things will happen to you. I mean, it's also evident in the Lucky Strike commercial that's sort of built into the diegesis of the narrative too, where they start singing the Aloha dancers. It's the same thing. They're comparing this hula dancer this sexy hula dancer to the cigarette itself, right? So it's sort of selling sex this entire time and sort of pointing to, oh, the Kinsey is here. There must be really scandalous things happening on this boat. That part I actually found hilarious and I laughed out loud. But I think, I don't know how people in 1953 would have taken it. I think it would have maybe seemed pretty scandalous.
I feel like people didn't necessarily read it. It was just something that people knew.
Oh, no, you didn't read it because it was actually a little dry inside, but you heard about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it was better to. Your thoughts on it would be wilder than the reading of it would be. Yeah, agreed. No, and it was everyone knew about it. It was mentioned everywhere. The other thing I'll point out with this episode is if you watch it to the very end, the last bits he's talking about his radio show and a little bit about his radio show, and you don't often get in the television show him referencing his radio show and that it's still running and all that. And would this be the last? No, he would have had. This would have been his penultimate season. One more,
but it's next to last. You're right.
Yeah.
So, and one thing that I found amazing about that is usually when there's a cast member that leaves a show, you pretend they never existed. But here, Jack Benny jokes about Phil Harris.
Exactly. 2 years after he's gone or whatever, it's like he makes a Phil Harris joke, and I'm like, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, boy, that's a deep pull from a while back, and yeah.
Well, but isn't Phil on his show still hanging out with a Remley? You know what I mean? So if Phil was still on the radio.
He's still on the radio, but the problem is he hasn't been hanging around with Remley for a couple seasons because and we still don't know exactly what happened there with at least I don't with the whole taking away Remley's name, but it seemed like right after he was off the show, Phil left the show, that someone, I think it was actually Remley, according to Phil, reached out and said, no, I don't want to use my name anymore. So
but certainly in 1953, viewers still got the alcohol connection with Phil Harris, just as, a generation earlier, they would have gotten that joke if it had been about W.C. Fields.
Sure. Oh yeah, the joke works. What I was going to say, the last piece of that was, so the last 2 or 3 seasons of Phil's show, the character stops being called Remley and starts being called the actor that plays him, Elliot Lewis. He starts being called Elliot. And so I thought it was really interesting that they didn't make up another name that's similar to Remley. I don't know what they'd use, but anyway, they just said, let's just use Elliot's name. So they use that. And and it's a very strange episode when you hear the one where they're changing his name. And just sort of that they make pretty light of it, but it's like, so you're gonna be Elliot from now on or whatever. Like, okay, move on, and everybody calls him Elliot, but it's very strange. Anyway, I guess that's it for this episode. We'll let everybody enjoy it. It's Marilyn Monroe was an amazing both woman and phenomenon. And it's just neat to catch her at this like apex of her career and for her to be in this, and it's fantastic. So, I have one more thing to share with my team and with anybody who's watching. A few weeks ago, we aired the very last appearance by Mary with Jack on television, which was the 1970 reunion episode of celebrating. What was it? 20 years since the beginning of the television show. But of course, Mary had been with Jack and married to him and on the show since 1932, right, Kathy? So a long time that he was on radio. They were on radio together and television. Well, I looked at my picture collection, and I'll someday share more with you, with everybody. But I was realizing, I really don't have Mary. I don't have a great shot of Mary. There are some great shots out there. So I said, I'm going to go on eBay and look. I like to get these little 8x10 things. And so I look, and there's none I really liked of Mary, but I did see one that I really wanted. And so I picked up this one, which is from that episode. And it is Jack and Mary together. They're not together in the episode. In the episode, they're just on the phone talking to each other. So this is them on the phone, but standing next to each other. It's a beautiful picture. And it's from that time frame because what's lovely is I love to get these ones that are apparently, and I'm sure someone here will know about this more than I do. It says Sentinel copy, and the Sentinel was a newspaper, and as far as I know. And so it says on here, Livingston, it says on here, Jack Benny and wife, then it says he is, and then it has a stamp, dead. I guess you can't write dead because it just takes too much time, so they have dead stamp. Oh, he is dead. Then that's crossed out and it says both are dead. So this shows that it was in their files, and they would pull it out if they're going to do a story or whatever, and they'd have one of these pictures. And I love getting these pictures from those because it's just kind of cool, because it really identifies like when the time frame is. And often there's a date on, let's see if there's a date on here. No, this one doesn't have a date, but obviously it's from 1970. But I have another one that I love that is Phil Harris and Jack Benny. It's the earliest picture I've ever seen of the two of them. And it says the date stamped right on it, that it's after Phil was on the show. It was like 4 months later or 5 months later that the picture was taken. And again, it's one of those file ones from a newspaper, but it's just kind of cool because that was like when they first, Phil was getting his character, Phil was becoming what became Phil Harris. And you could tell from the picture that they had that thing going, and Phil kind of had a loud sports coat on, and it was like, okay, we've established this. And had this picture been taken like 2 months earlier, he would have just been, the current band leader, but not really the Phil Harris he would be. And so I just love that is the beginning of the true Phil Harris, and that there's a picture that exists of it. And it's one of those things where you get these pictures and then if they're not on the internet, it's like nobody has this or whatever. You might have the only copy, and so it's pretty amazing. So yeah, I love both of those, and I try and get pictures of everybody, and I try and get ones where they not signed them, because of course that's way too much money for me, but ones where they have the fake signatures and things, auto signatures, where it's supposedly their signature, but it's really not. It's just a mass thing that they put out there. But yeah, I love collecting their pictures. Anyway, we'll let you guys go. Enjoy this show. It's wonderful. And we will see you guys next time.
From Television City in Hollywood, we bring you the Jack Benny Program, presented by Lucky Strike.
Hello, I'm Ed Thorgerson, and I have some mighty interesting facts here about college smokers. Last year, a survey was made in leading colleges throughout the country, which showed that smokers in those colleges preferred Lucky's to any other cigarette. Well, sir, this year, another nationwide survey was made. A representative survey of all students in regular colleges from coast to coast. Based on thousands of actual student interviews, this survey shows that, as last year, Lucky's lead again. Lead over all other brands, regular or king size, and by a wide margin. Number one reason for smoking Lucky's, just like last year, Lucky's better taste. Yes, Lucky's do taste better. First of all, they're made of fine tobacco. Naturally mild, good-tasting tobacco. Practically everyone in America knows LSMFT. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And more people are finding out that Lucky's are made better, too. Made round and firm and fully packed to draw freely and smoke evenly. Made to taste better. After all, smoking enjoyment is all a matter of taste. And the fact of the matter is, Lucky's taste better, cleaner, fresher, smoother. Find out for yourself. Be happy. Go Lucky.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lucky Strike program. As you probably know, this is my first television show of the season, and I'm quite excited about it because last year I only did 10 shows the whole year, and this year I'm going to do 13. 13 shows. That's 3 more than I did last year, or 486 less than Arthur Godfrey. But this season, I promise you, I'm going to bring some of the most important guest stars that you've ever seen on my television shows. As a matter of fact, I've already made arrangements to import some of these celebrities over from Europe, from Italy. I'm bringing a lot of these celebrities. I'm bringing over Gene Kelly, Gregory Peck, Robert Taylor, Claudette Colbert, Anna Marie Alberghetti. Oh, no, that one I got here in Hollywood. The others I'm bringing over, you know. And I'm also going to have this year a very, very important Broadway celebrity, Mr. Wayne Sanger. Now, I know that his name at the moment is not, you're not familiar with his name, but that as soon as you see him, you'll recognize him. Because for 4 consecutive weeks, he sat in the audience next to the celebrity who was introduced by Ed Sullivan. His agent is an usher. Well, anyway, here I am for the first show, and I'm... one of the reasons I'm so happy is because I had, for the first time, a wonderful vacation. The most wonderful... I went to Honolulu, you know, for 3 weeks, and ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been to Hawaii, you must go. You know, I always thought those narrators, you know, that narrate the travelogues, I always thought that they exaggerate, but really they don't. It's such a beautiful place. As a matter of fact, the Hawaiian Islands are really the tropical islands of enchantment.
Yes, the tropical islands of enchantment, the paradise of the Pacific, Hawaii. The city of Honolulu, rising among regal palms on the curve of Waikiki Beach. The splendor of the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, and in the background, Diamond Head, wearing a majestic crown of fleecy clouds held in place by the gentle pressure of the trade winds. But out of this dream, our visitors are abruptly brought back to reality by the realization that their vacation has come to an end. But even the farewell is something to remember, Hawaii's heartwarming aloha. As the luxurious queen of the Pacific, the Lurline, prepares to sail, there is music, flowers, and tumultuous gaiety. And here on the dock is where one of the most colorful ceremonies of the island takes place, the presentation of the leis. This is an old custom by which the natives express their feelings toward the departing visitors. First is the orchid lei, presented to those who have made friends while on the island. Next comes the plumeria blossom. This token, when presented to a traveler, expresses the sincere wish that soon he will return again. Yes, nobody leaves the island without the adornment of at least one flowery memento, for even the lei made of the common, ordinary ginger blossom is presented by the native shopkeepers to all those who have come into their stores and spent a little money. Uh-oh, is one of our departing visitors being neglected? Can it be possible that of all those people with whom he frolicked away those carefree hours at Waikiki, not one of them remembered to present him with the island's most treasured... Ah, here comes someone to correct this oversight.
Doggone it, there's the whistle, and Rochester isn't here yet. I wonder what's keeping him. There he is. Rochester! It's about time you got here. Come on, we got to get going.
Look, boss, do we have to leave now?
Of course we have to leave now. Why are you dressed like that?
I didn't have time to change. I was a special guest at a luau.
A luau?
That's a Hawaiian smorgasbord.
I know what it is. And anyway, why were you a special guest?
Well, this luau was given by the Polynesian chapter of the Central Avenue Social and Ukulele Club.
I know, but you still could have left early enough to bring your own luggage.
I couldn't help it. They wouldn't let me leave until we drank a toast to King Kamehameha the First.
King Kamehameha the First.
Then we drank a toast to King Kamehameha the Second. Then I proposed a toast to King Kamehameha the Third.
The third, huh?
Which led to a toast to King Kamehameha the Fourth.
Look, Rochester.
Then they insisted that I drink a toast to King Kamehameha the Fifth.
Well, you were certainly popular.
Popular? Boss, shake hands with King Kamehameha the Sixth.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Look, Rochester. Oh, there we are. Come on, let's get the baggage and we'll go. Take your own out.
Mr. Benny.
Yes?
I'm the manager of the Haleakala Delicatessen in Honolulu. And in honor of you having taken all your meals with us during your stay here in the islands, we'd like to present you with this.
Oh, well, that's... Well, of course, I noticed that the other passengers received lays of ginger and orchids. What is this one made of?
Chicken liver.
Chicken liver?
You better not wear it on board, boss. The seagulls will drive us crazy.
Never mind. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much. What a show-off.
Graceful as the virgin ocean, ooh, gliding like a gulls over the ocean, lovely hula has Tony Marania. When those fingertips hold the lucky strike so tender, ooh, they are just as smooth and slender as your hula has. Tony Marania. See how gracefully they're saying here at Waikiki. It's LSMFT. See the pleasure they're portraying. It's that meditation of that fine tobacco. So before you go, take a puff and say aloha. Till we meet again, keep Rockies in your hula hands. Tony Manani.
And so, with her bow majestically pointing into the trade winds, the luxurious queen of the Pacific, the Lurline, reluctantly sails from Honolulu Harbor. And as the Aloha Tower sinks behind the horizon, we bid fond farewell to Hawaii. However, our vacation has not come to an end, for we still have the luxurious voyage homeward.
Nice voyage, isn't it?
Huh?
I said it's a nice voyage.
Oh, yes, it certainly is.
Our position is latitude 145, longitude 21.
Well, that's nice.
The wind, the wind is coming from the southeast at 8 knots an hour,
Are you the navigator?
No, but I have a Commander Corey Space Patrol company. I ate cereal until it came out of my ears. That's how you get one of those compasses. You know.
And how long did you live in Kansas City?
Oh, about 16 years.
16 years, hmm? And you graduated from high school?
In 1936.
1936.
There's someone being interviewed there. Must be a celebrity of some kind. You know?
Yes. Yes.
You know, I'm a celebrity too.
Well, I guess I'll go to my stateroom.
Thank heaven, now I can read. Why doesn't he take those things off?
Cablegram for King Kamehameha the Sixth. Cablegram for King Kamehameha the Sixth.
Oh, here, boy, here.
Are you?
No, but I know His Majesty personally.
Yes, there's nothing like a trip on an ocean liner, for a voyage at sea is synonymous with romance. On shipboard, many a casual acquaintance has blossomed into true love.
Hello?
Hello.
Would you like to play some shuffleboard?
No, thank you.
Deck tennis?
No, thanks. I'm reading now.
Okay.
There's a celebrity being interviewed over there. I just want to go over and see who it is, because, after all, I'm a sort of a celebrity, too. Yeah? Oh, I beg your pardon.
It's quite all right. Mr. Benny.
Mr. Kitzel! Oh, for heaven's sakes, Mr. Kitzel. Well, what are you doing on this ship?
I just had a wonderful vacation in Hawaii.
No. Did you visit all the islands?
I went from Maui to Kauai, from Hilo to Haiti.
Tahiti?
From Tahiti to Tahiti.
No.
Yes.
Well, you must have seen all those hula dancers then with the grass skirts, huh?
Yes, I did. And the most beautiful girls I ever saw was on the island of Oahu.
I know what you mean. Well, is this your first trip to the islands?
Oh, goodness, no. Every year this time I'm spending 2 glorious weeks on the tropical islands of enchantment.
No.
Yeah.
Well, how can you afford it?
I got a nephew who's a master of ceremonies on a quiz program.
And you always win?
This year I went direct to Hawaii and he cabled me the questions.
No. Well, it's wonderful seeing you. Is your wife with you?
Who do you think I'm hiding from? Hello, Mr. Benny.
Hello.
After 1944, would I be saying...
How do you do?
Oh, how do you do?
Hello.
Certainly is a nice trip, isn't it?
Yes, it's
Beautiful
lovely.
Weather and everything has been so nice. Yep. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jack Benny.
Well, I'm Mrs. Michelson.
Oh.
I'm Dr. Kinsey.
A voyage at sea is an event that will always be remembered because there are so many things to enjoy. Dancing in the salon, sunbathing on the top deck, swimming in the ship's pool, and in the evening there is always a movie in the ship's lounge.
Gosh, that was a great picture they showed last night. Gentlemen prefer blondes. Boy, they sure had two beautiful girls in that movie. Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe. I know them both so well. Why couldn't one of them been on this trip? Here I am, alone, in a romantic mood. Gee, Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe.
Don't leave, Marilyn.
What?
Marilyn, don't go. Marilyn. Marilyn, please don't go. Marilyn, wait. Marilyn. Marilyn, why did you walk away from me? Why did you want to leave me?
Because I can't trust myself with you.
What?
You're so strong and I'm so weak. And when you look at me with those big blue eyes,
I understand.
In the picture, all I wanted was money and diamonds. But now, for the first time, I realize that all I really want is you.
Meryl.
Dream on, Mr. Benny, dream on.
Marilyn. Marilyn, I'm mad about you.
I'm mad about you too, Jack. Jack.
Yeah.
Jack. Will you do something wonderful for me? It would make me very happy.
Well, of course, Marilyn. I'd do anything. Anything for you. What is it?
Well, in my next picture, there's going to be so many love scenes. I want you for my leading man.
Oh, Marilyn, I'd love to be your leading man.
Good. Now, if we can only get permission from Darryl Zanuck.
Why? Who did Mr. Zanuck have in mind?
Himself.
Gee, Marilyn, I just can't get over just the both of us here all alone on the Lurley.
Yes, Jack. I never dreamed it could happen to I.
Neither did me. Marilyn, why are you sighing?
I was just thinking, Jack, how generous you are. Just so we could be alone on this trip, you chartered the Laureline for $600,000.
I did?
If that doesn't wake him up, nothing will.
Marilyn, I know this is sudden, but will you marry me?
Marry? But look at the difference in our ages.
Well, there isn't much difference, Marilyn. You're 25 and I'm 39.
Yes, but what about 25 years from now, when I'm 50 and you're 39?
Gee, I never thought of that.
I did.
You shut up. Marilyn, will you have dinner with me tonight?
I'd love to, Jack. Thanks ever so.
At 8 o'clock?
All right, but I better be going now. Bye-bye, baby. Remember, you're my baby. with my baby. Bye. Mark, that's strange.
What's strange?
I'm so crazy about you, but that kiss didn't affect me at all.
That's funny. I'm a wreck.
See you later, Jack.
Don't forget. Marilyn, don't forget dinner tonight
I won't.
at 8 o'clock.
I'll remember.
Marilyn, come back here a minute. Please come back. Marilyn, give me one more kiss before you go. Hey, wait a minute. You're not Marilyn Monroe.
Well, you ain't no Errol Flynn.
Gee. And I was so sure I was talking to Marilyn Monroe.
Ah, yes, the sea plays many mental tricks as you're gently lulled in the cradle of tranquility. But there's nothing as soothing and restful as a Pacific cruise back from the tropical islands of enchantment.
Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I do want to thank 20th Century Fox for allowing me to dream about Marilyn Monroe. Incidentally, 20th Century Fox is the studio that has just produced this wonderful, this great picture, The Robe, which will soon be presented here, and through this new process called CinemaScope. This is really a great, great event in the history of motion pictures. Now, I know you'd like to see Marilyn Monroe again, so I'll bring her out very, very soon. But first, a word from Dorothy Collins.
Friends, smoking enjoyment is all a matter of taste. And the fact of the matter is,
Lucky's taste better.
Cleaner, fresher, smoother.
Lucky's taste better.
Cleaner, fresher, smoother. For Lucky Strike means to buy tobacco, richer tasting to buy tobacco.
Lucky's taste better.
Cleaner, fresher, smoother. Lucky Strike, Lucky Strike.
sure Lucky's taste better. Everybody knows Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. Fine, light, mild tobacco that just naturally tastes better. And Lucky's are made better. They're round and firm and fully packed to draw freely and smoke evenly. With fine tobacco in a better-made cigarette, golly, you're just bound to get better taste. Smoking enjoyment is all a matter of taste, you know. And the fact of the matter is,
Lucky's taste better.
Cleaner, fresher, smoother. Lucky Strike, Lucky Strike.
Thank you very, very much. Marilyn, this is your first appearance in television, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Jack.
Well, I'm quite flattered that you made your first appearance on my show. I really am. Just wonderful to have you. Have you a picture that's coming out pretty soon, a new picture? I mean, we've seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Another one, new one?
Yes, it's called How to Marry a Millionaire. It's also in CinemaScope.
Oh, it is? In CinemaScope, too?
Yes.
You know, I made a picture once. The horn blows at midnight. And I believe if that had been made in CinemaScope, it would have been a huge success.
Well, you know, CinemaScope is very complicated. In order to put the big screen in all the theaters, they have to take out a lot of seats.
Well, in my picture, they could have taken out all of the seats.
Jack,
What?
I don't know why you're always panning The Horn Blows at Midnight. I saw it.
You did?
Yes.
And you don't know why I'm panning it? Did you like it?
No.
Well, thanks ever so. So long. Goodbye, Marilyn. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really quite flattered. I feel highly honored that I was able to have Miss Monroe for my first show, and I do want to thank 20th Century Fox so much. Of course, another thing that thrilled me today is because I also opened my radio series today. You know, I did my first radio show, and I had my same cast with me. There's Dennis and Mary and Don Wilson and Rochester, everybody but Phil Harris. Funny thing, Phil Harris hasn't been with me for 2 years, and I still don't dare light a match in the studio. But I love radio, and am I through? Is that all I get? Oh, well, thank you very, very much.
Monroe's Gown was designed by Travilla. Appearing on tonight's program are Artie Auerbach, Joe Kearns, Maxine Cates, Frank Nelson, Kay Stewart, Tyler McVeigh, Ralph Reeves, and Manny Kiwani and his Islanders with Connie Marsh. Remember, 1 week from tonight, that's September 20th, charming, disarming Ann Sothern returns in her famous role as a not-too-private private secretary. You'll love watching Ann's hilarious adventures and misadventures. This
Sundays, Ed Sullivan's Toast of the Town on CBS Television Network.